What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, and with the Toronto Regionals taking place last week, I wanted to do some unofficial commentary over some of the top 32 games. Of course, the original video and commentary can be found in the description, but I wanted to provide my own in a non-live setting as we could take things a little slower and explain and pull up each card as it gets played. And so to start things off, we have the top 32 of Kalgara versus Lucci. Now let's get started. Our first game is very interesting as we have the only Rob Lucci and the only Kalgara to make it into the top 32. So props to both of these players. But going right into matchup, I think this will be Lucci favored as his removal style is going to work pretty well against Kalgara, who uses a lot of low characters and it's mainly 4 to 6 cost characters that he will be playing. I think as far as game plan goes, Kalgara should be looking to kind of flood the board and overwhelm Lucci before he has a chance to get to later turns and start establishing either multiple jacks or Kuzans. As I think the later the game goes, the easier it will become for him to remove these characters. That's because if he's running the standard Kalgara format, this is a lot of mid-range aggro, as while he could use the 10 cost NL, this really isn't that common. The most notable new addition is the 5 cost Kalgara, who allows you to draw one card whenever a card is removed from either you or your opponent's life. This plays very well into the leader strategy as you're looking to take life and get aggressive in earlier turns, and this will allow you to basically draw 2 cards per turn every time you take a life. The only downside is only being 5 cost, it should be relatively easy for this Lucci to remove if he combos his Brook with some of his other cost reduction cards. And so neither player mulligans, and while it's pretty difficult to see what's in their hand, I think from right to left we have the 3 cost Spandine, 4 cost Rebecca, 7 cost Jack, and 5 cost Hoo Hoo for this Lucci player, and I'm not sure what his last card is. But overall, I would say this is a solid starting hand. And we really can't see anything against Kalgara as his hand is still face down, so we'll try and see what he has on the following turn. We then have a nice friendly fist bump to get things started, and it looks like Kalgara is going first at 1 Dawn. What can we see in his hand? Not much just yet, but he passes the turn to Rob Lucci, who draws another 2k counter, and then also doesn't play anything. But I think I saw a second Rebecca in his hand, so overall this is a great starting hand for Rob Lucci, who passes on his 2 Dawn turn, and we go back to Kalgara, who at 3 Dawn could play one of his searchers or the 3 cost Holly, but I don't see either in his hand, and it looks like he opts to attach everything to leader and swing for 8k, which brings Rob Lucci down to 4 life and adds a 4 cost Rob Lucci to his hand. He then starts his 4 Dawn turn by attaching 1 to his leader, swinging 6 at life, and then activating his leader ability to trash the top 2 cards of his deck, which end up being a black hole and a 2k counter. And you'll notice that Rob Lucci's ability allows you to trash 2 cards from the top of your deck and then give up to one of your opponent's characters -1 cost, meaning you don't actually have to target a character to activate the first part, so even though Kalgara doesn't have anything on the field, he can still activate this effect to put 2 cards in his trash. And since he didn't just swing 5k, it makes me believe he has a Brook in his hand, which he does reveal and play down, which is going to be great in following turns to combine with some cost reduction to start KOing some of Kalgara's cards. As Brook has the on-play and when attacking effect to give -1 cost to one of your opponent's characters, and then KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 0. And with 2 Rebeccas in hand, even once he's KO'd, it's going to be very easy for this Lucci to recycle him back onto the field. We also get a little glimpse into this Kalgara's hand. I can see the 1 cost Upper Yard in his hand, as well as the 4 cost Wiper 2k. It's also at 5 Dawn where he'll start to gain value from his leader ability, where by attaching 1 Dawn to his leader and drawing the top of his life cards, he can play down a character with a cost equal to the number of Dawn on his side of the field. Which essentially means for 1 Dawn he can play a 5 cost character at the cost of losing 1 life. Moving back to the game, it does look like this Kalgara decides to do it, as he attaches 1 Dawn to his leader and swings 6k at the Rob Lucci, and we'll see what card he's able to bring down. We still can't see all of his hand. But he does decide to drop down the 5 cost Kalgara, which is great as he can play this on curve. He then adds a card to his life, and Kalgara's effect triggers since it reads both you or your opponent's life, and he draws an additional card. And so those were a lot of effects that happened, but now it's up to the Lucci player to figure out if he wants to 2k out, which it looks like he does decide to do, discarding a 4 cost 2k counter Khalifa into the trash. And in case you were wondering, if that life was taken, would Kalgara draw an additional card? And the answer is no, because his ability reads only once per turn effectively, as once you do it, you cannot draw cards using your own effects during the rest of the turn. And so with 4 Dawn remaining, Kalgara plays the 4 cost 2k counter Wiper, who on play allows you to look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal 1 Upper Yard and add it to your hand, and then play 1 Upper Yard from your hand. So we'll see if you can find it from the top 5, but even if he doesn't, we already know that he has an Upper Yard in his hand. And so it looks like he can't find another, but that's okay. He can just place these cards at the bottom of his deck and then play the Upper Yard from his hand, which he does, playing the stage, which has the on-play effect to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and then add 1 Sky Island type to your hand. And he finds the 4 cost 5k power Ohm, who on play allows you to look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal 1 Holly, and then play it onto the field. Which is great in this Lucci matchup, as you're trying to flood the board since you know that he's likely going to be removing at least one of your characters per turn. And it looks like this Lucci top decked Laboon, which is exactly the card he wanted to see, as I think before this he didn't have much cost reduction, and this is going to be exactly what he wants to play out on this turn. So he rests 4 Dawn to play him, activates Laboon's effect to make Kalgara 1 cost, and then attaches 1 Dawn to Brook and swings 5k at life, while giving -1 cost to Kalgara and then KOing him. It's now up to the Kalgara player if he's going to want to counter out of this, which he likely will because he wants to use his leader ability on the following turn to cheat out another character. He's thinking about which card he wants to use to counter. I think that's a 2k counter Wiper in his hand, which he does end up using, which is valuable information to this Lucci player as he realizes that all the 1k counters in his hand he probably wants to play on the following turn. He then swings 6k with his leader, putting 2 more cards in his trash and getting another 2k counter from Kalgara before ending his turn. Now at 7 Dawn is where things are going to become very interesting, as Kalgara can now use his leader ability, cheat out a character, and then bring out either a 6-cost Kuma or a 5-cost Nolan with his remaining Dawn and heal the life that he just lost. It's also at this time that Kalgara needs to think about which character he wants to remove, either the 4k powered rested Brook or the 5k power rested Laboon, which gives -4 cost each turn. I think in general, removing the Laboon is the better value play, since we know that Lucci's run Rebecca's that can just recycle with Brook. This will also depend on what cards Kalgara wants to play this turn. I see another 5-cost Kalgara in his hand, so likely that will be coming out with his leader ability. And depending on what else he wants to play, it might make more sense to target this Brook, since with no Dawn invested, he can still force a 2k counter out of Lucci's hand. And so while he would likely prefer to remove the Laboon, it's easier to confirm the removal of the Brook since he can swing 5k and then 6k at it. And so he starts with a 5k swing at the Brook, and now it's going to be up to Lucci if he wants to counter out, which it looks like he does immediately. You might be wondering why he chose to counter out when you know that he's likely going to be removed on the next attack. But if he didn't counter out of this, Kalgara could change up his game plan and swing a huge hit into Laboon, removing both of his characters on this turn. The Kalgara player is now thinking about what to do, and I don't think I saw either a Kuma or a Mont Blanc in his hand, so while he won't be able to heal this turn, perhaps he'll be able to flood the board with characters. He then picks up 2 Dawn, which makes me think he's going to target the Laboon with an attack rather than the Brook, which I think is a great adjustment as it will now force either another 2k and a 1k from his hand if Lucci wants to defend. He then picks up his life and then draws an additional card because of Kalgara's effect. And since he already used a 2k counter to save the Brook, the Lucci doesn't want to lose another 2 cards, and I don't even think he had a 2k counter in his hand, so Laboon gets KO'd. And with 5 Dawn remaining, this Kalgara still has a lot of different options that he could decide to do. And he decides to rest 4 Dawn and play out the 4-cost Ohm, who again, on play, allows him to search the top 5 cards of his deck, add a Holly to his hand, and then play that Holly from his hand, which could be a massive turn for this Kalgara, establishing 4 characters onto the board. Oh, but unfortunately he doesn't find the Holly, which would have been another 5k powered character on board, so unfortunately it's not fantastic. It's still a great turn, but it would have been even better with a 1 extra swing for the next turn. The Lucci player will then start his 8 Dawn turn, and I believe he started the game with a Jack in hand, so I would likely expect to see that come out, but with Lucci you just never know, there's so many different combos you could play, so he might drop 2 4-cost characters instead. So we'll just have to see what he does. Okay, he starts by attaching 1 Dawn to Brook, so this will make it a 5k swing, but where's it going? It looks like he's swinging 5k with Brook at the rested 5k Wiper, but then giving -1 cost reduction to the Kalgara. I like this play from Lucci as it's going to force cards out of Kalgara's hand, and it looks like he uses one of his Searcher's Shurus as a 1k counter to get out, and he follows it up with a swing from Lucci, once again giving -1 cost to Kalgara, making him a 3 cost, and unfortunately milling 2 10-cost Kuzans, but I don't know how much of that matters in this matchup since he really doesn't run any characters that are really difficult to remove. It's now up to Kalgara to figure out what card he wants to counter out with, because it's pretty obvious that his 5-cost Kalgara on the field is going to get KO'd, so he wants to have at least 2 characters for the following turn. And we do see that he has both Kalgaras in his hand, both the 5-cost one that we've already talked about, as well as the 6-cost 8k powered vanilla one, and he's kind of debating of which one he wants to use as a counter. This is because both of these cards can be useful on the field. The vanilla one is an 8k powered character, which he could use to threaten the Jack that we expect to see, but the 5-cost effect is just so useful of drawing an additional card every turn, and so he discards the 6-cost as a 1k counter. He then rests all remaining Dawn to play out Jack, activating his ability to rest him, draw 1, trash a Rob Lucci, and then KO a 3-cost or lower character, and he targets the 5-cost Kalgara, who became a 3-cost after using both his leader and Brook's effect. And this Jack is going to pose a major threat to Kalgara, as he can combine his leader ability of giving -1 and KO any card he currently has on the field, as they're both currently 4-cost characters. And not only that, he's a rested 8k powered character, meaning he's going to need significant Dawn investment to even threaten him, as the most dangerous threat would be a 10k swing. And his strongest character on the field is only 6k power, since this 4-cost becomes 1k power higher if he's at 2 or less life. He starts things off with a 6k swing at the rested 4k Brook, which I think should get the KO here, but I think Lucci also isn't that worried with multiple Rebeccas and a Mancheri in his hand. So Brook gets a KO, and with 9 Dawn remaining, what is Kalgara going to do? Obviously, removing Jack would be amazing, but with 5 cards in Lucci's hand, he likely doesn't think that he's going to be able to swing a big enough hit to get the KO. And I see the 1-cost event counter in his hand, but unfortunately against Lucci that doesn't have that much value, since a lot of times he's just swinging 5k or 6k with his characters. And for his second attack, he's going to attach 1 Dawn to Wiper and swing 6k at life, which Lucci is going to take. And with 8 Dawn remaining, Kalgara has some options. I think I do see another Ohm in his hand, as well as that might have been a Kuma in the corner, but it's kind of hard to tell from this angle. We'll see. He then swings 7k at Lucci, which again is a magic number. It will force a 2k and 1k out of his hand, or bring him down to 2 life as well. And so then he plays down his third 5-cost Kalgara, drawing a card from his life, and then drawing an additional card from Kalgara's effect. And Lucci decides not to counter out. I don't think he has a 2k counter in his hand right now, so again that would have been too costly, and he's down to 2 life as well. The Kalgara then rests all of his remaining Dawn to play out the 6-cost Kuma, who on play allows you to trash 1 card, and then add 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life. There's another useful effect for this matchup, where he gains +2 cost until the end of his opponent's next turn, so he's essentially an 8-cost character on the field. And finally, on KO, he heals an additional life. Lucci then starts his 10 Dawn turn, and while he's currently outnumbered 4 characters to 1, I likely would expect this to change, and I would be worried about every single character on this board outside of the 8-cost Kuma. But if we look at Lucci's hand, it actually looks like he doesn't have all that much when it comes to cost reduction. Looks like he has I think he has 3 Rebecca's in hand, 1 Manchuri, a Spandine, a Rob Lucci, and then something else that I can't really see. It might be a Brook, I think it's a 3 cost, but it's a little blurry. But he does have a lot of options with those Rebecca's, so let's see what he cooks up. I find when playing Lucci, there's always a lot of math that goes into it, as you're trying to figure out how much Dawn you have available, how much cost reduction you can do, and what's the best combo to remove as many cards as possible. This is also something I like to warn players before playing Rob Lucci live, as it's a little different on the sim where all the math is being done for you, you can see it right in front of you, whereas in an actual game, you're kind of having to do it all inside your head. And of course, from the outside looking in, he's probably going to want to remove that 5-cost Kalgara, but outside of that, it's going to be a combination of does he want to continue to develop his board and remove another character, or attach some Dawn and do a big swing to remove one of these rested characters as well. He was then just double checking his plan, but it looks like he's going to attach 2 Dawn to Lucci and swing 7k at the rested 5k Wiper, as the rested Ohm is a 6k powered character since Kalgara has 2 or less life. He then unfortunately mills both a Kuzan and a Laboon, which are probably cards that he wanted to pick up since right now his hand has very little cost reduction. And then for the -1 effect, he gives it to the 5-cost Kalgara, bringing him down to a 4-cost character. And now the question is going to be, does Kalgara want to counter out? I think he has 5 cards in his hand right now, so this would bring him down to 3, but likely Jack is going to be using his effect this turn, meaning this is the only attack that he's going to need to defend. And so he actually makes the decision to counter out with a 2k Wiper and a 1-cost Sure Searcher. So while his hand size has declined, he's hoping he can make it out with at least 3 of these characters. The Lucci then plays the first Rebecca of the match, who on play allows him to add 1 3 to 7 cost character back to his hand, and he chooses a 2k Khalifa counter. The second part of her effect allows him to play a 3 cost or lower from his hand, and he plays out a Brook, bringing Kalgara down to 3 cost. He can now activate Jack's effect, resting him, drawing a card, trashing 1 card, and then KOing a 3 cost or lower character. And so he opts to trash another Kuzan before KOing the Kalgara. And with 4 Dawn remaining, we could see another Rebecca come out, or perhaps a 1-cost Manchuri to add another card back to his hand. But first, he's looking at the cards in his trash, probably figuring out which one he wants to add back, or bring out with one of these effects, or just counting the total number, and I like the way he laid it out. This seems like a Blackbeard style play where you just lay 4 across, and so it's easy to quickly see you have 12 cards in your trash. And so he picks up 1 Dawn, and this could be the Manchuri that's coming out. He's thinking about what he wants to do, counting the cards in his trash. So he rests 1 Dawn, and it's actually Tempest Kick. Now, because he has more than 10 cards in his trash, he's going to draw a card and then give -3 to one of his opponent's characters. And he chose the Ohm, which makes sense as it's currently a 6k powered character and just a little stronger than the rested Wiper. And with 3 Dawn remaining, does he have another Broken? Oh no, it's a Spandine. We actually don't see too many Spandines anymore. I think a lot of Lucci players stopped playing them when you couldn't combo this out with Gecko and Rebecca, but on play, he allows you to return 3 CP9 cards to the bottom of your trash and then play a 4-cost CP9 character rested. And he's going to choose the 4-cost Rob Lucci, who on play allows you to return 3 more cards to the bottom of your deck, and then KO one of your opponent's 2-cost and one of your opponent's 1-cost characters, allowing him to KO the 1-cost Ohm on the field. This was a very strong turn for Lucci, allowing him to go from 1 to 5 characters, with 3 of them being threats in the Jack, the Brook, and the Lucci, while also having a 4-cost Rebecca blocker. So Kalgara is going to need a pretty big turn here to start clearing this Lucci's board and kind of gain some momentum back on his end. I think at this point this Jack is pretty safe, so it's going to be targeting the Brook and Lucci and see if he can clear him. It can be difficult to look through his hand, but as he's filtering through, I think I see the 2k counter Zeus, the 1-cost event we talked about earlier, and I think he has a Bartholomew Kuma in his hand as well. And so I think he's not going to use his leader ability on this turn, but rather focus on healing a life with a Kuma, and then using his remaining Dawn to perhaps clear some of this board and leave one up for his counter event. The tricky part about Lucci in the late game is between Rebecca, Jack, Brook, as well as the Manchuri that we know he has in his hand, there's just so much recyclability and trash recursion that even when you clear these characters, there's a good chance that they're going to come back on the following turn. And I know Kuma is a 7k powered character himself, but without multiple big bodies on the field, it's really hard to remove this Jack, especially with the added protection of a Rebecca blocker and still a pretty decent hand size. Now he does have a Zeus in his hand, where for 2 Dawn he could pick up one of his lives and KO a 5-cost or lower character, clearing the way for this Rebecca and being able to do a big swing into Jack. The problem is, at this point in the game, he's already down to 2 life, so if he did this strategy, it'd bring him down to 1, and there is a decent chance that he could lose on the following turn, so it might just be a little too aggressive. I just cut ahead slightly as the Kalgara was thinking about what to do, but he starts things off with a 7k swing from his Kuma, which is actually not at any character and instead at life. I wonder if this was just a feeler to see that if this did go through, perhaps there was an angle where he could then use Zeus to KO the Rebecca and try and go for game with his remaining Dawn? Or perhaps this was just to try and get cards out of Lucci's hand, but either way it looks like it will get countered out with a 2k and a 1k. My only thought with that is by going after life with one of these attacks, this now means that Rebecca can block one of the following, and it means he'll really only be able to KO one of these characters on the field. But of course, he knows his leader and this matchup better than me, so he probably saw this as the most optimal play that he can make on this turn. And he is in a very tricky position at this point, as he knows likely whatever he swings with will be KO'd on the following turn, either from the clapback by these other characters on the field and their actual attacks, or by the effects of Lucci in combination of Jack and some cost reduction. And after a little more thinking, he decides to attach 1 Dawn to Wiper and swing another 6k at the Brook perhaps? No, he counters with a 2k. So this is actually at life once again. I guess he's trying to go for the life angle to bring out Lucci low enough to kind of go for game with the Kuma that he can deal with on the following turn. He then attaches 2 Dawn to leader and swings another 7k. I think this is once again at life, and he counters with Rebecca. So I think at this point in the game, Kalgara is realizing that board control is not going to go his way, and he's going for some all-out aggression to kind of burn down through Lucci's resources and kind of win on the life angle. And speaking of the life angle, he brings out Kuma, who once again will allow him to trash 1 card from his hand and then add 1 card from the top of his deck to the top of his life. Once again, he's thinking about which card to trash. He still has the 2k Zeus, the 1-cost counter. I think that's another 4-cost Ohm in his hand. And he does trash the Ohm, adding a card to his life, and I think he only has 2 cards in his hand. So again, he's down to very limited resources. So he passes on to Lucci, and let's see how he plays out this 10 Dawn turn. He starts, of course, by drawing a card, and it does look like this is a Tempest Kick, which again can be very useful, giving that -3, very powerful in later turns. And he also has a Man-Sherry, so again, he can play that down, rest it, and activate its effect to add another Rebecca back to his hand. But he starts things off by playing out the 1-cost Tempest Kick, drawing a card, we couldn't see what it was, but then giving -3 to the rested Kuma, which makes him a 3-cost character. That's because the +2 cost effect only works on the first turn he has played. He then activates Jack's effect, drawing a card, discarding a 10-cost Kuzan, and then using his ability to KO the now 3-cost Kuma that's rested. Kuma's on-KO effect then triggers, allowing him to add the top of his deck to the top of his life and bring up his life total to 4. Which is pretty solid considering he started the game with 5, but he is running low on resources with only 2 cards in his hand. The Lucci player then attaches 1 Dawn to his Rob Lucci on the field, bringing him up to a 7k powered character and attacking the 5k rested Wiper. Now this Kalgara could protect him with his 1-cost counter event, but following this attack he could swing another 5k with Lucci and then another 5k with the Brook, so it really doesn't make sense to go down to 1 card in hand, and he allows him to get KO'd. The Lucci player then takes a little bit of time, he's reviewing his hand, kind of counting the number of Dawn, and I'm sure he's doing some mental math here to figure out if he has enough to get another KO, or what he wants to do next to develop his board. And it looks like he has 2 Dawn available, perhaps this is going to go on one of his characters, let's see what he does with it. He starts by attaching 1 Dawn to Brook and swinging 5k at life while giving -1 cost to the active Kuma, which I think would bring him down to a 7-cost character. And this Kalgara likely doesn't want to counter, so no, he picks up that life, and I think that was a Wiper that he added to his hand. I can't really see, or is that a Mont Blanc? Oh, I think that is a Mont Blanc, which unfortunately is a little too late, as he ran through 3 Kalgaras already and wasn't able to find this card. And that's one of the challenges with Kalgara. You have so many searchers, but they are very specific, and we really don't have a way to add Mont Blanc to our hand other than drawing him. And so he does swing that 6k, which he doesn't counter out, adding another card to his hand, and it looks like this is a Gum Gum Red Hawk, which unfortunately he won't be able to benefit from the second effect, since both him and his opponent's total life is only 4, and he can't use it to KO one of his opponent's characters. The opponent then plays the 1-cost Man-Sherry, activating her effect to rest 1 Dawn, rest that character, return 2 cards to the bottom of his deck, and then add 1 3/5 black character back to his hand, and he chooses a Laboon. This is to give the Lucci more access to cost reduction on the following turn if another Kuma comes out to be able to really KO anything with his Jack. And with 4 Dawn remaining, he plays out Rebecca, putting the Spandam into his trash, and then using Rebecca's effect to add a 2k counter back to his hand. So let's see what this Kalgara is able to draw and able to deal with on this turn. It looks like he added, I think that was another Mont Blanc to his hand, which is just exactly what he does not want to see. 2 Mont Blancs in your hand with no Kalgaras is just pretty devastating. And he's handling it very well, but you can see he kind of shook his head. He's probably wondering where were these Mont Blancs in earlier turns when he still had a Kalgara on the field. So he really has nothing useful to play. He can play the 5-cost Mont Blanc, but it's not going to heal a life because he doesn't have a Kalgara character on the field. He could use Zeus to KO the Rebecca, but then he's down to 1 life and a threat of getting KO'd on the following turn. This Kalgara is kind of running out of options here. The good news is this is a best of 3, so while he has had some unfortunate searches, not finding that Holly, not finding a Mont Blanc until all of his Kalgaras are gone, in the event that this game does not go in his favor, he has a chance to turn things around in the following games. And of course, no game is over till it's over, but at this point, I would say Lucci is really in the driver's seat, and he would have to make, a couple of grave errors for Kalgara to be able to turn this thing around. But as I mentioned, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon, so Kalgara could also be thinking, what does he want to do differently in the following game? Should he go second to take that curve away from the Lucci? Should he look to try and establish one of his 6-cost Kalgaras to at least have an AK-powered character on the field and be able to threaten this Jack? There's a lot of things to think about what he could do next in the following game. And unfortunately, just like before, even though he does have Zeus in his hand, even if he's able to remove this Rebecca, he only has 2 attacks that he could go through, as he doesn't have any characters with Rush, and so still that would bring down Lucci to 0 life and not be enough to finish the game. And he also knows for a fact that Lucci has at least 3k counter in his hand, but likely more with 4 total cards. And so he decides to attach 1 Dawn to leader and swing 6k, I believe this is at life, and Lucci will use Rebecca to block. He then has 9 Dawn remaining, and he looks like he picks up 3 to attach to Kuma and swings 10k at the Jack, but we know that Lucci has at least 3k counter in his hand, and he does decide to counter out with 2 2Ks, keeping that Jack alive. He then spends 5 of his remaining Dawn just to get a Nolan on the field, but we do know that without a Kalgara, he won't be able to heal a life. And so with 1 Dawn up, 4 cards in hand, and 2 life remaining, he ends his turn and passes over to the Lucci, who just restands his characters, gets that Dawn back up as active, and draws for turn. And we can't see what he added, but I'm sure we'll see it soon. And the Mancherry also survived the previous round, meaning we can use her effect once again and add another Rebecca back to his hand. So he starts things off by grabbing 3 Dawn and actually playing down a Hina, who on play gives -4 cost to one of his characters, and he chooses Nolan, bringing him down to 1 cost. And then he attaches 1 Dawn to Brook, swinging 5k at leader, and then giving -1 to make Nolan a 0 cost, and then use Brook's when attacking effect to KO him. Now the Kalgara has to think of whether or not he wants to counter out of this. He does have another Nolan in his hand, but that could be very useful for healing if he does pick up a Kalgara on the next turn. But he decides he doesn't want to go down to 1 life just yet, so he does decide to discard that Nolan and counter out with a 1k. Lucci then activates Mancherry's effect, resting both her and 1 Dawn to return 2 cards to the bottom of his deck, and he chooses, it looks like, 2 different Kuzans of the 4 cost variety, before adding another Rebecca back to his hand, which he likely will play out with his remaining Dawn. But first he swings 6k with Lucci, which will either get him down to 1 life or force a 2k counter out from his hand. And it looks like Kalgara chooses not to counter, takes a quick peek, so probably no trigger effect, and adds it to his hand. Lucci then rests 4 of his remaining Dawn, likely bringing out that Rebecca, which he does, replacing Hina, then using Rebecca's on-play effect to add Hina to his hand, and then play her out to the field, replacing the rested Lucci, and giving -4 cost to the Kuma. This now makes Kuma a 2-cost character, meaning he can use Jack's effect, cycle a card from his hand, trash the Laboon, and then get rid of that Kuma, which will heal the Kalgara back up to 2 life, but he now has 0 characters on the board. And of course Lucci isn't done just yet. He attaches 1 remaining Dawn to leader and swings 6k at life, trashing 2 more cards into his trash, and Kalgara will need to decide whether or not he wants to 2k out with his Zeus. It looks like he is opting to do it. He's thinking about whether or not he wants to commit, perhaps thinking about an alternative option next turn, but even if he were to play out another character with only 1 attacker through his leader, he's not going to be able to finish the game next turn. So he does counter out with a 2k Zeus. And he's going to need a miracle next turn, and he does draw a Holly, too little too late. That's just further salt in the wound, and I think Kalgara realizes that this game is over, Lucci's in the position, and it's time to focus on game number 2. A little fist bump to end the first game. We love the sportsmanship from both sides, and it looks like Kalgara has admitted defeat, and they're setting up for the second game. Now, I had a lot of fun commentating over this game. It's kind of a different style of video that I haven't really tried before, so let me know if you want me to continue this and cover game number 2 and more of the Toronto Regionals, or if it's time for me to go back to leader guides. And of course I can do both, but I just wanted to see if there was desire for this type of content as well. And of course we have both of the deck lists for both of the players, starting with Kalgara. He's running 3 of the Shura Searcher, on play, allowing you to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and add 1 Sky Island card other than Shura to your hand. He also has a nice trigger which will allow you to activate his effect. We're then running 4 of the 2-cost Zeus, who is a 2k counter with also a useful effect, allowing you to pick up one of your lives while killing one of your opponent's 5-cost characters. We then have the 3-cost 5k power Vanilla Holly, who we'd like to play in combination with the 4-cost Ohm, who once again allows you to look at the top cards of your deck, add a Holly to your hand, and then play it out to the field, which can be great, especially on a 5-Dawn turn, as you could essentially establish 3 characters if you use your leader ability along with this card. We then have the 4-cost Wiper, which again is a 2k counter, but can be useful to play at 4 Dawn if you need to play him, allowing you to reveal an upper yard and then play it onto the field, effectively allowing him to work as a searcher if you do find that upper yard. He's also running 2 copies of the 5-cost Wiper, who allows you to kind of the opposite effect, allows you to return one of your 1-cost stages to the bottom of your deck, look at the top 5 cards, reveal 1 upper yard or Shandor Warrior type, and add it to your hand. So kind of, if you already have one on the field of this upper yard, he allows you to return it and kind of activate it again, or look for another Shandor Warrior. Then when it comes to healing, we have the 5-cost Nolan we were talking about, who on play, if your leader is the Shandoran Warrior type, and you have a Kalgara character in play, add 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life. We're then also running 4 copies of both Kalgaras, both the 5-cost 6k power, who your turn, when a card is removed, either from yours or your opponent's life, you get to draw 1 card. Then you cannot draw cards using your own effects during this turn. We then have the vanilla one, who again is, doesn't have an actual on-play ability, but is a 6-cost 8k powered character that we can cheat out for only 1 Dawn. Another new addition from OP12 is this 6-cost 7k power Wiper, who again is a character that we could play out with his effect or just use as a standard 2k counter. Interestingly enough, he's only running 3 Kumas. I guess his preferred method is the Mont Blanc, but again, this is a very useful card, allowing you to heal on play, as well as when he's KO'd, you get to heal once again. We then have a lot of events. They have similar effects, but the first is El Thor. Counter, give up to one of your leaders or characters 2,000 power, then if your opponent has 2 or less life, give another 2,000 power. But a very useful trigger, allowing you to KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than their total life. We then have the 1 cost the Earth Won't Lose, which again, if your leader is the Shandoran Warrior type, up to one of your leaders or characters gains 3,000 power for this battle, then you could play 1 upper yard from your hand, which again is kind of a nice little way that you could cheat it out. We then have the 1 cost Gum Gum Red Hawk, who works again as a 3k counter for your leader, but also has the activate main effect. You may rest 3 Dawn cards, or 4 in total, If both players' total life is 5 or more, KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. And then finally, he's running 4 of the Upper Yard, who on play allows you to look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal 1 card with Sky Island type, and add it to your hand. Moving on to Lucci's deck list, you'll notice he's running 1 to 2 copies of a lot of cards, and the nice thing about this leader is because we filter so many into our trash and we have ways to bring them back either through Manshare or Rebecca, you don't always have to run 4 copies or even 3 copies of cards that you want to see, since there's a really good chance that you're either going to add them to your hand or put them into your trash where you can add them back later. This starts with only running 2 copies of Manshare, as I guess he sees her exactly as much as he needs her, and then can use her ability to recycle any 3 to 5 cost character back into his hand. He's then running 2 copies of One-Legged Soldier, a 2k counter, but also allowing you to play it onto the field and give -3 cost to one of your characters for 2 Dawn. And then interestingly enough, he's running 1 2-cost 2k powered blocker, I guess just another blocker on the field if there's, a need for it on one of the turns. He's also running 2 copies of the 2-cost Uta, who can be very difficult to deal with since it cannot be KO'd by your opponent's leader, and you can activate main Rester and give -2 cost to one of your opponent's characters. He's then also only running 1 copy of Spandam, which I guess is as much as he needs to either get him into the trash or get him into his hand. He's then running 4 copies of Brook, which makes sense. This is one of your best removal options and one that you want to see every game. He's also only running 2 copies of Hina. I think in the same way as Spandine, you only need 1 or 2 as you're going to get them into the trash and then bring them back out with your Rebecca. He's then running 3 copies of Laboon and 4 copies of Kuzan, who I think are the premier cost reduction cards now within this deck, with both of them giving -4 cost to one of your opponent's characters. The benefit of Laboon is he's a 1k counter and can also be activated on the same turn you play him, whereas the benefit of Kuzan is you activate this effect when attacking, meaning you don't have to choose between either doing it or giving that -4 cost, you get to do both. He's then running 4 copies of Khalifa, a 2k counter, 4 copies of Rebecca, one of our best trash recursion and blocker cards, as well as 4 copies of the 4-cost Rob Lucci, allowing you to KO both a 2-cost and 1-cost character. He's then running 1 Sabo, which again is maybe for specific matchups to give some KO protection, or just as another way to filter through your hand and establish a blocker on the field. Then running 3 copies of Who's Who, another 2k counter, and interestingly enough, only 2 copies of Jack. I'm surprised we don't see more, but again, it worked for this player. He did very well, and he won the first match here in the top 32. But I'd be very curious the rationale. Perhaps he thinks that he can recycle these Jacks with his Rebecca, and he can keep them pretty safe, so having more than 2 just wasn't necessary. He's also then running 1 copy of the 9-cost Kaido, which can be great for removing a 7-cost character. And then 3 copies of the 10-cost Kuzan, which is a great late game strategy, as once you get him down on the field, he gives -5 cost to all of your opponent's characters and makes them a lot easier to remove on the following turns. Event-wise, he's running 1 6-King Pistol, I guess another 2k counter since we do run a lot of counterless cards in this deck. And then of course 4 copies of Tempest Kick, which is one of your best event cards, allowing you to draw a card in hand and give -3 cost to one of your opponent's characters as long as you have 10 cards in your trash. And then again, I haven't seen this card be used before, but he's running 1 copy of Iron Body, give up to one of your leaders or characters 4,000 power, then if your trash has 10 or more cards, give that card another 2,000 power, so a 2-cost 6k power boost as long as you have 10 cards in your trash. Perhaps this is for the Zoro matchup or something specific, not entirely sure. And finally, I do know that Black Spiral is used in the Zoro matchup, as it allows you to protect one of your characters and then turn off Zoro's effect, meaning he won't be able to restand and attack your life after this attack is unsuccessful. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful, and I hope by me attaching the cards and kind of explaining how they work, you're able to have additional insight as you watch this match. If you want to see more videos like this, please like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Hope you have an amazing day, and I'll catch you next time.